Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is the Beyond YTT or Beyond Yoga Teacher Training podcast, and I'm Kristen Boyle. And I have three very special women here today. We're talking about yoga in the realm of bringing it to special populations, and one very special population is women who have experienced pregnancy and loss. And so I'd like to let these women introduce themselves to you. Can we start with you, Brianne?
Absolutely. I first came to yoga about 14 years ago after my oldest daughter was born and died. And since then, I have had multiple losses. My son is my only living child that I ever carried to term safely in pregnancy number 13. But I found that yoga was a place that I could go safely and find some peace and some growth. And I had an amazing yoga teacher that just created such a beautiful space for me in whatever ugliness or beauty I happen to bring. And so that's my draw towards yoga, is I would like to, offer some of those same things to the women that I meet and encounter.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And Alyssa, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Alyssa. I have been teaching yoga, I don't even know how long, maybe 8+ years. And in my own experience with working with trauma and working with special populations, I decided to take a prenatal teacher training, which led me to my doula training, which led me to supporting several women in their process of having a baby and celebrating new life. And there were enough births that one of them actually ended in a loss. And that was my first experience with stillbirth. And being in that room and supporting this woman was something that I had not expected. And it challenged me and it guided me to a bereavement doula training. So now my demographic is working with women who are high risk, women who lose their babies, women who have lost their babies. And working with this demographic, realize the importance of yoga and reclaiming their rights to be in their bodies and forgive themselves and experience themselves in their process of healing. And I connected with one woman, one of my students, her name is Amanda, and we actually ended up creating this retreat called Nothing Gold Can Stay Retreat, where we bring women who've experienced pregnancy and loss from all over the country together to be with one another and process and heal and work their way through their grief. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Alyssa. And Sarah?
I'm Sarah Bustamante. I'm based in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And I'm a practicing yoga therapist, and I'm currently combining yoga therapy with my training as a birth and bereavement doula. And so I was first led to yoga therapy many years ago after experiencing my own trauma. And just recognizing how yoga was able to help me reconnect with my body at a time when really I felt somewhat disconnected from myself. And so yoga, I studied yoga therapy with Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy, which combined yoga with psychology. So I started working through my own trauma through the training. I started also working with women who had been through trauma, and then also became interested in grief. So I was already working with trauma and grief, And then about 2 years ago, decided I was going to start my own, I call it my reproductive journey. So my journey towards starting to try to have children. And in the meantime, I have experienced 3 miscarriages myself. And so in that process, I started offering yoga therapy for women at a birth collective. So I recognized a need for that and serving this population, and just how much yoga therapy could help with women who have, even during pregnancy, maybe they're dealing with just the huge changes that are coming about, stepping into new motherhood, or maybe postpartum depression, and then also the grief aspect of it with loss. So I started taking a birth and bereavement doula training. I'm close to being done with that training, but I'm already working with women who have experienced loss. And not only women who have experienced loss, but also pregnant women who have known women who have experienced loss and who are dealing with their own anxiety around the possibility of dealing with their own loss. And yeah, what I've really taken away from it is just really the power of yoga to help women to use their reproductive journeys as a means of deepening their relationship with themselves and with the people around them, and recognizing that this is an underserved population. And it can be a very, very isolating experience, and just kind of creating kind of a safety net, or a safe place for these women to go and to share what they're going through, because it is such a significant life change that's often unrecognized and under-supported. So,
yeah, it's so beautiful, Sarah, and all of you. Thank you for everything that you're doing to offer to this population. And I just wanted to ask, how do you think that yoga has helped your individual journey, or how do you think that yoga is going to help others? And I just invite any of you to chime in when you have something to say.
So with my experience, I have always been a little bit disembodied, and so my practice has helped me really feel okay in this boundary, and truly honoring that this is my vehicle for life, and letting it guide me through some of the work that I'm doing. And I thought that was so powerful, that I always encourage my clients, whether we're having a happy, healthy baby, or we're having a baby after loss, or this woman just experienced loss, to dive into this practice of merging breath and movement. And a lot of feedback that I've gotten from women who have experienced their own loss is that they felt like their bodies betrayed them, right? And so yoga is one way for them to move away from that idea and really honor their bodies and all that their bodies are capable of. And that's a big step in healing, is the recognition that because this happened, it doesn't mean that you're broken, right? And really moving into a place of love and forgiveness. It's one of the more powerful movements towards healing that I've found in this particular population, is to be with yourself and your breath.
Nice.
I find it beautiful that you mentioned that these women often feel broken, because it can take years for them to ever feel like they are put back together, or find that new sense of who they are now versus who they were before. And that can be such a journey. So for them to be able to take that time for themselves and really connect with themselves physically, emotionally, mentally, because they're all one, one impacts the other. We can't really pull them apart. And yet if we work with one, it'll serve the other, and creating those bridges between those things that we do know and the things that we still feel like we have, to the things that we feel like we've lost and we need to reconnect or rebuild from those, because we often feel like our bodies have betrayed us, that we are broken, and there's a sense of, where do you go from here? And sometimes it's just about having that safe place to be while you figure some of that out, some of that journey.
Yeah.
Some of the overlap I'm hearing there is like the importance of having a safe space to process it, because it is such a, I would say, an earth-shattering experience, or like having, for me, it was like having the rug swept out from underneath me. And it seems like all the expectations I had, as soon as I was pregnant the first time, I had so many expectations, and then all of those, I think my grieving had to do with all of those expectations being turned upside down or just stripped away, and not really recognizing what was happening around me anymore, not understanding my place and everything. And I hear that echoed with a lot of the women I've spoken with, is kind of the unfairness of it all, the why me? And this seems like such a natural thing in life. And, you know, so many women questioning their purpose in life. And then, like you were saying, Alyssa, losing trust in their body in some way, or feeling betrayed by their body. And so I think it's such a, I think too, the spectrum, something I've recognized in working with them, is the spectrum of joy and sorrow, and just how wrapped up in one another they are, and that almost that they can exist side by side. They do exist side by side. And that in somehow experiencing that pain, it also opens you up to experience the other side of that, in the process of redefining who am I. And really, I think there's a grieving of the loss of who you were before. Like Brienne was saying, like figuring out, like acknowledging you're a completely different person, and you might never be the same, but how can you step into that as a place of empowerment, to really redefine your purpose and reestablish maybe a different and stronger sense of connection with self, and a redefinition of tribe. And so a huge thing is noticing, like, needing a certain kind of support when you're that raw and you're that vulnerable, and really needing to be held in a very sacred way. And so I think a lot of it is redefining your relationships and rebuilding tribe, and kind of, for me, it was placing myself more around people who could be with my pain as I was going through it. I could just go on and on. A lot of it's about standing in your truth. For me, it was holding on to, having the expectation of, oh, just get over it. Oh, you're still going through this, like, and going, I have every right to feel what I'm feeling. And so for me, it was really allowing myself to go through it, as painful and as icky and as murky as it was, and to go through it with a sense of awareness. So instead of kind of losing my footing and flailing about, I think my yoga practice is what I could come back to maintain a bigger awareness, and to know I will get through this, and it's going to turn into a beautiful, amazing thing. And that's how I redefined my purpose. And it all is going, I'm really going to use this experience to help other women who have gone through the same thing.
Yeah, I love so much that well, so much that you've all shared, but Sarah, what you touched on was you're a completely different person, and also in that completely different person having to almost redefine your tribe, because your tribe is, it's on the outside, like it's different than the woman who goes home with the healthy baby, right? It's a very different look. So from the outside looking in, you don't have that baby in your arms, and so people kind of think, oh, well, you've gotten beyond it, right? But I think on the inside, it's something completely different, and you're kind of speaking to that. So identifying your tribe, or finding people who can relate and who can understand what you've gone through on the inside, that's transformed you into a different kind of person, a different way of being in the world. I just imagine that that's one of the harder aspects of it. I don't know if Brianne or Alyssa, you have anything to say to that?
I think one of the things that people don't even think about is it's very obvious when we lose a child that we grieve that as well. But there's more to it than just that, because often we do lose our tribes. People don't know, they don't know how to talk to us, they don't know how to approach us. We lose all sorts of these connections that we have relied on up until that point in our life, and then they're gone. And, finding that place or those people that can have that support, I think it's partially important for our growing, but also just because quite often we find ourselves tribeless. We have nobody to sit with us in this, because it can be it's lonely. It's a lonely place to be.
Yeah, it seems like one of the biggest challenges there is one of you mentioned too, sitting with someone in that pain, in their pain is hard anyway. And that's just one that I think, unless you've experienced it yourself, it's hard to understand, which adds to the loneliness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my clientele, something that we work with and talk about is that there is no time frame for grief. And what they found in their previous tribe is, well, you should be over it by now. It's been 6 months. And because people like to box this amount of time around healing, around this situation, people can feel like they don't have anybody to talk to, or that they can't bring it up because it makes people around them feel uncomfortable. And that's why I'm so interested in creating more community with this population, because you're never alone in it. And it happens more often than we actually know. But as everyone's mentioned, it's just a very lonely and quiet process of grief. And so we also have to keep in mind that we can't expect somebody to grieve and be over it in a certain amount of time. And I know that's hard for people as they watch somebody in pain, that you can't always fix it, and you can be there, but it might be uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's such a good statement for our society today. I feel like so much of us are about fixing and curing and making it better. And so sometimes you just have to be exactly where you are, be in your truth, however that looks in that moment. Were you going to say something, Brianne?
Oh, and it can be messy.
Yeah.
It's a messy process. It's not beautifully packaged. It doesn't look good. It doesn't come with bows, and it's messy. And to be able to sit with somebody in that can be extremely uncomfortable, and yet you need to learn to just be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And you don't have to fix, you don't have to do anything. Just being there. That's what these women need. And you'll find a way.
Yeah.
There's something there about speaking to empathy, and how, a lot of times people don't understand, and it's impossible to understand have you not gone through it? And even from all the women who have experienced loss, everyone's story is so different. And to me, what I've learned is that I don't have to understand to have empathy, to put myself in their shoes and say, wow, that must have been so hard. And letting go of trying to understand and letting go of trying to fix it. And a lot of the times there is no fixing it. Coming back to, you just have to feel it. You just have to go through it. Yeah.
Well, and what you said, that must have been so hard. You know, just what is the language that you use with a woman who's experienced this? I know Alyssa and I've spoken before about, you don't say, well, at least you have, or you know, any of those comments that people make, and perhaps you all can speak to them better than I can, because I think it's so important to remember the language that we use and how we approach, you know, acknowledging that it's hard. You know, sometimes that's enough, because there's so much that you can't understand having not been through it, that just simply saying, wow, that must have been really hard. Yeah, or it must be really hard, not even been, because we've said that there's no timeline to this.
I think a lot of the times it's noticing, being aware of the discomfort in yourself, like Brianne was saying, like it is uncomfortable to be with someone's pain. But I think that it's in noticing our own discomfort that we're able to hold that space and to go. And I think that's it, is that even in our society, it's very much trying to fix it or change it, or you know, there's a quote that's like, don't cry. I think Fred Rogers said the quote about not crying. Like, people say don't cry all the time, and what he wishes people would say is it's okay to cry. And having people, I think one of the things that was hard is the people in my life thinking, oh, we just want you to have a baby, and so that almost like a baby would make it all better. Like, oh, you wouldn't have to grieve anymore if you had this baby. And feeling like, no, I'm still going to grieve the babies that I didn't have. So there's just so many misconceptions about it too. And that's one of the harder things to be with, I think, is being around the people who have good intentions but just aren't sure of the right thing to say. And I think a lot of it is just being there, just listening, not having to say anything, but just listening and letting someone know that you're there.
Yeah, and not having to cheer them up or pull them out of it, or here, let me take you to this great lunch and pull you out of your sadness. No, that doesn't work. Let me take you out to lunch and be with you with your sadness, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
I had a friend after my daughter died that did the most remarkable thing. She had no idea what to do, and everybody else, we had a bunch of friends all pregnant at the same time, and so it was very awkward for them, to say the least. And she just simply went for walks with me, and the greatest thing is that she was never scared to ask, how are you, you know, where are you, like, what do you need? And she was able to be okay if I didn't react wonderfully, or, you know, or if we just walked in silence, or, you know, whatever it kind of looked like. And it was a beautiful experience, because a number of years later, then her second child died, and it was beautiful for us to be able to reconnect in that, where she knew where she could come and where she could land softly. And and it strengthened our relationship because she was willing to just be. And, you know, she didn't step away from whatever would come to the surface with me when I was going through things. She just sat with it and took it in stride, and was really gracious in the way that she was able to just be accepting and okay with it.
It's really beautiful. It's a strength, isn't it, to be able to just be with someone. And it seems so simple, but probably a very hard thing to do.
It's a beautiful gift if somebody can do that. It's such a gift.
Yeah.
To offer, but also a gift to have. Like, not many people have the ability to sit in those situations. So if somebody has that, like, what a remarkable gift they have to offer and present to people. Like, it's remarkable.
Yeah, it's creating that safe space. And you've shared with me before, Brienne, that your experience with yoga, going in to the yoga studio and just crying on your mat for, I don't know how long you said you did, but
months.
Yeah, I mean, so there's something happening with yoga and in yoga studios that are creating safe spaces for these processes to happen for each one of us. And then, like Sarah's doing with yoga therapy, taking it into that individual level too. And Alyssa's doing with the bereavement doula process, also being someone who can sit with someone going through their pain. And isn't that, I think there's a thread there of having a safe space, but also having a person or a community, or being able to not go and hide at home alone. There's a time for that, of course, but to be out in the world and be exactly as you are, that's a pretty powerful gift to have.
I'm so grateful for every experience I've had with stillbirth, and every experience I've had teaching my students who have trauma or just having a bad day, is that I've learned that in teaching this class, like, I see you, and I'm not here to fix or change anything, but I witness you in this, and it's okay to let it all go here and surrender here. And I didn't know how to do that before, and I wish that was something that we could spread into the world, of just, you know, being seen, and those who are seeing not feeling like they have to fix, because, as you said, Brienne, it's just such a beautiful gift. And that's why I want more of this clientele to come to yoga or have these spaces, because this space, I'm sitting in the studio right now, is judgment free. It's sacred, and there's no expectation around showing how you show up, other than show up in respect to others, but be in your process. And don't be afraid to be in your process, because I know when somebody's crying, I don't have to go and tend to them and fix them and help them, but just breathe with them. Continue to guide them through the movement and the breath and just the witness.
So I'd excuse me, I'd love to hear from each of you, kind of how would you, I don't know, guide a woman who's experienced loss, or who's going through that grieving process, to find the help that she needs, or how does she even know if she's ready for it? Because I think there has to be a readiness also, whether it's yoga or whether it's, you know, something else. How would you reach out to her? Or how could she find you? Or any other offerings that you know of?
I think one of the biggest things that they could probably do is find some sort of a bereavement group in their area, because the other women there will be such a source of references. Like everybody will be trying different things and doing, you know, looking in their own directions, and they'll be able to perhaps give some ideas or suggestions on what, you know, what their paths, even sharing their own stories is, you know, this is where I went with my path, can give you some ideas on perhaps what might feel right for you, and to just, as hard as it is, just trust your heart, because when you hear something that kind of rings, yes, like that's what I want to do, just try to embrace it and don't feel like you have to have it figured out.
Yeah, and are there bereavement groups specific for pregnancy and loss? Or, I mean, I feel like in larger cities probably, but in smaller cities even, are there, or is it just narrow?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few online that I know that when 14 years ago, there was not a whole lot, even in the city that I lived in, and I lived in a fairly large city. And I found some beautiful women across the world in online bereavement groups. And, you know, then you don't have to worry. There's no time, there's no distance, you know, if you're up in the middle of the night or doing whatever, like there are women. So even online, if you can't find something local, online is a wonderful resource. I mean, that's how we are connecting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The internet is creating some great spaces, isn't it?
Exactly. Online's magic. So if you can find something physical, wonderful, but don't feel like it has to be, you don't have to leave your house for it.
Yeah.
I think something that supported me was finding those people in my life who I knew I could talk to, who would hold that sacred place for me or that safe space for me. Limiting the amount of time I spent with the people who I didn't feel like could hold that space, because it seemed to just be a hindrance to my healing. And I knew in order to heal, I had to really have that sacred, safe space, and to really be around the people who I could be transparent with. And so I think, and I feel like, you know, not everybody has that. Not everybody either. And you might find out pretty quickly that maybe some of the people in your life who you thought would be there for you or could be there for you, maybe don't have that capacity to be with the pain that you're going through. And so if there's not anyone that you know in your immediate you know, friend network or family network, I think that's when it would be a good time to find a group. Or I'm hoping that the yoga therapy that I'm offering in private, one-on-one session format, is something that will be more like people know that it exists, that's an option. There's also counselors to talk to. There's, I think, all kinds of people. It's really just kind of, and I think too, there is power in sharing your story. Like, I think that can be healing in and of itself to be, and for me, it was sharing my story over and over and over and over until it became less and less painful to be able to share it. And I think most cities that I know of do have groups available, maybe not smaller towns, but there are online communities. And so meeting online, yeah, that's kind of some places to start. And then there's also, I think, if you're pregnant again and you have experienced loss, that can be kind of a place to reach out to your tribe again, to have that that support of acknowledging the losses as you step in to embrace the new life.
I think that one-on-one yoga therapy with grief and loss is huge. Like, if I could have gone that way, I think it would have been much more comfortable for me as a mother who, you know, was going through that. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, which is, and the fact that the therapist, because I offer some of that myself, like, as that person can come to you in your safe space, you know, in your little womb that you've created, that is, you know, you can be selective as to who comes in and who shares that with you. And it's okay if your circle once used to be really large and it's like come down to like those few select people. You don't need a huge tribe, just a few people who can love you and support you is all you need. You don't have to go big and all out. So yeah, finding those sources that can come to you can sometimes be such, just, it can make the burden of trying to find that place so much easier because you've already got that place at home in your own safe four walls.
Yeah, that's a good point, is having someone, if there are, I mean, and there are therapists who do travel and come to you, and that can create even a more safe container because it's your own home, it's your own space. But yeah, or groups that are specifically designed for that group of women, definitely. And I think what Sarah said is sharing your story over and over and over again. It's painful and it's frightening to share your story, but I think there's a lot of power in listening to how you share your story, you know, and the language that you use around it and how that changes over time. You know, and my own journey, I haven't suffered through pregnancy and loss, but I've had my own trauma, and the way that I tell the story of my trauma, that's almost my own reflection of how I'm doing in healing, how I'm doing in the process, you know. So I think there's a lot of ways to do that, a lot of ways to share, whether it's in a group or with one-on-one close friends. Just one, like you said, one tribe member is enough sometimes. You know?
Yeah. I would say too, to mention a specific resource for women who have experienced pregnancy loss. It's called Stillbirth Day. And that's who I'm doing my birth and bereavement training through, doula training. And their website is stillbirthday.com, and they have a ton of resources for, you can read other people's stories. They give you an opportunity to share your own story. There's different events that happen. Every October, it's Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And they offer, I think it's a worldwide thing called the Wave of Light. It might be called something different in different places, but you can find a local event, the one nearest to you, and everyone lights a candle at a certain time on a certain day. And it just kind of sends a wave across you. You could kind of imagine seeing it globally, just the wave of all the women who have experienced loss, whether recently or maybe many years ago. And so it's just, the irony of it is that it can be such an isolating loss and a lonely loss, and it feels like no one understands and no one's going through this, but then at the same time, there are a vast amount of people who have gone through it, who are going through it, and they are out there just knowing that can be a comfort.
Yeah, you're never alone, even though it feels alone. I think it's always what I try to keep in mind. Yeah, and so what you're speaking to, Sarah, is that there are so many people, who have experienced this and who may benefit from a community, from yoga, from some sort of healing work. And so just before we close, any tips for yoga teachers who feel like this may be a group of people that they would like to work with? Where could they get started? What can they do? I know, Brianne, you're in the process of starting, and Sarah, you're working with them, and Alyssa, you are too. So
I did my training with Stillbirth Day, and they're amazing. And you can do it all online. And if you are looking to support this demographic, that's a great place to start. Trauma trainings are also incredible, because what we do is so much, it relies so much on our language that we also have to be very mindful of how we speak and what we say, and really hold space for everybody. Everybody's experienced trauma, but Stillbirth is a fantastic resource if this is a demographic that you're interested in. Along with a prenatal yoga teacher training, it's such, again, an underserved, in my mind, demographic, and I'd love to see more people diving into supporting mamas to be, and really creating more space around this topic.
Yeah, I think the trauma-informed trainings are really important. In, like Alyssa was saying, to really, you spoke to the language, using supportive language that's not going to be re-traumatizing, or and also just how to, in the yoga therapy I've been through, we learn how to honor edges. And so to recognize whether it's an emotional edge or a physical edge, or however that edge shows up, knowing how to be with that edge without pushing past it or pushing someone past it, but staying in that edge, staying with the discomfort, because it's that place of discomfort where a lot of the healing can happen, and the awareness. And so I think my training with Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy has been huge in teaching me the tools of how to find it within myself to hold space for people who are going through really hard times in their life, to be with someone who's falling apart and to not waver. Or if I am wavering, to know how to take care of myself in the midst of that. And so Phoenix Rising is a trauma-informed yoga therapy training. And I think that, combined with the Stillbirth Day birth and bereavement training, has been just phenomenal in preparing me for being with this population, and for using yoga to help them kind of learn some coping skills, and to really embrace it as a way to redefine themselves, and to redefine their purpose in it all.
Since I'm also a Phoenix Rising yoga therapist, I definitely second what Sarah's saying with the training itself. Really learning how to hold space, how to be in that place, and to notice when I myself am unable to hold space, and how to care for myself, and be there for the person through their own process, to really become the witness rather than being in it, but rather supporting and witnessing. And also, I think, as we talk about trainings, there's also life experience that you bring in. So if this is something you've experienced yourself, or someone close to you and you've gone through it with them, I think either way gives you a lot of information to be supportive to others. Yeah. Anything else to add?
Something important, speaking from like the yoga teacher, the yoga therapist, or whatever professional we happen to be, is to remind these women that that they can recreate themselves to be whoever it is that they want to be. Mm-hmm. And they have the power, and it will take a long time and it will be a long, tedious process, but they have the power to create such a beautiful life for themselves and become, you know, I guess it's kind of like the lotus flower that grows out of the mud. So to remember to speak to that, because quite often we know where we are when we're in our pain, but we don't know where we're heading and we don't know what it's going to look like. And so to give them hope and to remind them that, you know, they can recreate and put themselves back together into these amazing, beautiful, and strong beings that can do such wonderful things. That is something I think that we all need to be able to give them.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And so just to quickly close, do you all want to share how someone might get in touch with you if they're interested in either finding support for themselves or supporting this population? I think all three of you have lots of insight and knowledge to share. Should we go in the same order?
So starting with me, I have a website, revivebodyandmind.com. That's probably the easiest. I am also on Facebook and Instagram, so, but links all are on through revivebodyandmind.com.
Thank you.
In this line of work, you can find me and my retreat partner Amanda on Instagram. Our handle is Nothing Gold Can Stay Mamas, and here you can see stories of other women. They'll take over for a week and share their experience with their loss and even share your own. So find us on there. I'm also on Instagram. Just look up my name. I'm around. I teach at Kindness Yoga, so come see me.
And I go by Soulfly Doula. And so my website is in the process. It'll be soulflydoula.com. And I do already have, I am on Instagram as Soulfly Doula. I'm also on Facebook. And also I'll be not only offering groups and individual sessions in Oklahoma City, but I'll also be creating a mentoring program that will be offered online for women who want to embrace their reproductive journeys as a means of self-discovery, whether it's embracing their pregnancy and becoming a new mom, or maybe it's a loss that they've experienced to really use that experience for self-discovery. So I will be offering an online mentoring course eventually. So just keep referring to soulflydoula.com, and I'll have all that up pretty soon.
Wonderful. Yeah, so we have Oklahoma City, Denver, Colorado, and what city are you in, Brianne?
Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Say that again.
Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Ah, Calgary. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So we've got a good representation across the continent. So thank you all. I appreciate it, and I'll put your websites linked in the comments when I post the video. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Kristen.
Yeah, absolutely. Please share. I hope it helps even more. I'd love to see this go further than the four of us.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
You ladies.
you. Bye-bye.